think I fixed it in time. But now I can't figure out, OBS, where are you? Ta-da! I think I got it. Oh, that video looks awful.
Well, yeah.
Let me, real quick, just while we're chatting at the beginning.
I mean, yeah.
I'm going to play with this. I made it. Whoa.
You made it better for your podcast.
Yeah, but it was a different time of day and everything gets jacked up. It's just so grainy. It's alright. We need a lot of things. Whatever, it'll work. It'll be small anyway. Seth says hello.
No, hey Seth. How's it going?
Oop. I always leave something going. At least it wasn't the random drums like an hour into it the other day. Get it done. Friday and Sunday. Sounds cool, man. That was a fun one we did yesterday, or whatever day that was. Was it yesterday? Did I do the podcast yesterday?
No, Sunday.
Sunday. Oh, yeah, yesterday.
Because you slept all day.
Yeah. I'm just getting all kinds of confused. Alrighty. So how's this week been?
Better than last week. I practiced more. This guy made a schedule for me. It's cool. I feel more confident. Of course, I feel like I should practice more, but... Seth, can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure my mic is alright.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Anyway, yeah, I feel better. I feel like I should practice more, but it was a good start.
Sure. Everybody thinks that.
Yeah.
There's always like what you compare yourself to, right? And then then you're always kind of thinking, I don't sound as good as this, or
It's like this guilt hanging over your head, like
that too.
Like, oh, I should do better. I have to do better. But it's like, okay, just take it one step at a time. It's cool.
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah.
Most important thing. Yeah, have fun and express yourself. Do whatever you want. Right? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you don't compare yourself to people on recordings and all that stuff. Plus, you never know what kind of editing they did to make themselves sound good, right?
That's true.
And then, yeah, I mean, whether you're better or worse or whatever, you can always learn something. So just have fun with it.
Yeah.
All right. So you did have a few questions and things that you thought you should work on. We were kind of chatting on the way over to the studio today. One of them was the picking. You said you did a little bit of the pentatonic kind of thing, a little bit of that. But the big thing for you was you had a bunch of asshole chords pop up. Right?
Those stinking bar chords.
Yep.
So, I mean, I was kind of working through them, but I need some help with that.
Uh-huh. You were seeing, so what she was seeing a lot of is she started looking at some chords and started, just looking at some more songs. And every time she was doing it, there were, or most of the time, a lot of the songs she was looking up, there was like one chord or two chords that would throw her off. So the chords specifically that were throwing you off was an F sharp minor you would see from time to time, but the big one was the B minor.
And
an F. Okay, so we should definitely. I showed you a little bit. Make myself a little note. I'll show a version of an F that you can play. That a lot of times is way easier, especially if you're changing to the F from open chords. So normally when you're playing, I shouldn't say normally, but a lot of the time. You're going to stick with either the open chords or these bar chords we'll talk about. If you and I were in a band right now and you're jamming on the acoustic, you'd probably do the acoustic chords. You'd probably do the open chords. I would probably be doing more bar sort of things or other sorts of noodling, right? So, it kind of depends on the context. You might want one versus the other. The open chords are used more on acoustic because they sound brighter. That's the big thing. So if I play something like that, that's going to sound a little bit brighter than like if I play what did I just do? A G? So if I do the bar chord version of that, or it starts to sound a little bit more dead the higher up you get. So if I mean, just to show you with a regular note, if I play there versus there, get in tune. If I go all the way up here, sounds real dead, right? So just
You're kind of like muting it more.
I'm not. I'm actually.
The farther you go down, like, isn't
It's
it more of like, I don't know.
you're shortening the string so there's less to resonate essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, I guess.
I knew what you meant. Music's a pain in the ass to try and describe with regular language sometimes,
Yeah.
because it's like everyone always ends up using stupid words, just like you were even seeing with the recording, like crunchy and stuff. That kind of makes sense, but like bubbly. I don't know why I said it like 3 syllables. Bubbly, or yeah, people talk about instruments being warm.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, yeah. So to start off with, just one quick thing with these bar chords. The cool thing is they're movable. So, literally, we're going to talk about 4 shapes, and they're going to be tricky. So when you're first starting to practice these, you're going to want to do them in moderation, probably, and then so practice maybe like 50% of your or less of your time on the bar chords, and then move into then practice more of the regular kind of chords. It's hard to switch back and forth.
Yeah.
So, but what's cool is because those chord shapes are movable. With 4 shapes, you can literally play every song.
Okay.
With the exception, as long as it has major and minor chords, you can play anything.
Okay.
If it had like a weirder chord, like a diminished or augmented, you wouldn't be able to play those chords with these 4 shapes. But there's shapes we'll talk about eventually. They're very uncommon.
Okay.
Okay, so the reason the B minor was popping up so much for you is because it happens a lot in the key of G. Tons and tons of times. So you probably saw a G before it most of the time. So one thing real quick just to show people, if you're in a pinch, you could potentially do the G/B,
Which
right?
was-
Yeah, so instead of going... We had our guitars drop before we started, or one of them, and then I bumped mine, just smashed it on the mic stand. So real quick. But like... Well, you said you were working on it a little bit. So do you remember the B minor? Or was it like you know it from looking at the chart?
Yeah, I remember that my second finger was like either
Yeah.
this one or this one. This one, right?
Yep.
And then this one and this one?
Yep. And then flat. The flat's the hard part, right? For
Right.
most people, at least.
Yeah, so it then ends up sounding like this.
Which is not bad at all.
Okay. It was a lot better than I was expecting.
I saw your
was
face.
like, hey.
It just sounded perfect,
But, like,
you know?
well, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Cool. So yeah, so I mean, you like that. Like if you were playing the G, that's really common.
and then I have to remember I can take a second to get my fingers in the right spot.
Yeah, one thing with the bar chords that you'll see a lot of is they'll put the bar first and then the remaining fingers after.
Okay.
If you're going from, especially from like an open chord to a bar chord, it can sound really choppy. So if we went like, that wasn't too bad. It's hard to make it sound worse once you get it, you know. But if I were to add the bar first and have like a Yeah, people might, if you're hanging out on a chord for a while, you might even do that just for the hell of it. Whatever you want to kind of play around with. Like I said, those chords will kind of come together. We might, if we have time, we might talk about like a little bit about what chords work well together. Yeah, open E is technically a bar shape for sure. We might talk about like a little bit of the theory of like what chord, but we might just keep it to like a cheat sheet where you know what chords sound good together at this point, and then gradually start understanding why. Okay, so let's just start. Let's start with those. let me navigate and pull up these. So these are going to be our 4 shapes. Okay. Some of them are cut off right now, but does not matter. I would not learn them in the order that they're written, though. Okay. So first of all, Seth actually just mentioned this in the chat a bit, so I might as well bring it up. There are certain chords. I turned into Sean Connery for one word. There are certain chords that are these bar chords that they relate to that are open. Okay. So
What do you mean by open?
open art chords are all like the things that you kind of started with, like the G, the E minors, the A minor, whatever, like the stuff down here by the first fret where you're using open string, a lot of open strings, right? A lot of zeros, essentially. Bar chords are anything where you the bar is the technique, but bars are what make things movable, and it's probably going to make more sense once you think about what they relate to. Okay. So ignore the bar for a moment. And I'm actually going to cut this off so it makes it easier. Those are all shapes that you know. So that first one, this is what Seth just said, the E is technically a bar shape. So if we think about when you're playing down here, I shouldn't say never ever, but I 99.9% of the time would not play it like this. I'd be doing different fingers, right? Much easier, just manageable. But to show you, what's happening is the nut is doing the job for you of the bar, essentially. So because the nut is there, and the nut's the plastic part or bone or whatever, most of the time it's like some sort of composite, whatever. But anyway, that's doing the job of the bar. Because if you think about zeros, like all the zeros that are in your chord, it's happening right there, right? So if we were to turn that shape into a bar chord, you're just going to move it to any fret and then add the bar where the nut would be. Okay, so like if I were to move it just to the first fret, yeah, exactly. So right there, that's a major shape, and the name of the chord is going to change depending on where you play it. So right there, you're starting on the 4th fret with that bar. So because that's a G sharp or A flat, depending on what key you're in. So that's a G sharp chord. If you saw like an A chord, you're at G sharp, you move up one note. There you go. That's it. Okay, so that's that first chord that we were talking about. So you can see how what you were just playing had that bar included, but it's like that E shape, right? If we were to look at like this next one, don't worry about playing this because, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily do them in this order. But if you look at this next one, that's like the A chord, right? This one's kind of like E minor. What about that one?
A minor?
Yeah. So you have those 4, and like I said, so you have essentially, if you think about this, you have a bar chord starting on the 6th string and starting on the 5th string for each major and for minor. Okay, so depending on what you're playing, like you literally, like I said, as long as there's not like a goofy chord, like a diminished or augmented, it's just major minor chords, you could literally play every song, and you could play that all on one string, or you could play it with stuff that's closer. So you're gonna switch between like, you might play like, something kind of cliche, but just right there, I'm switching between 6 string, 5 string bar chord, that sort of thing, back and forth. But like I said, most of the time you're going to keep it closer, so it's convenient. Okay. The order that I would do these in, especially if you are brand new to these, you've goofed around with them a little bit by just seeing the chord charts in the songs. But I would do the 5 string version, so the far right. Do that minor first, and then I would do the one that you were just doing, the major 6th string.
Because it's the same shape.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing, just on more strings. Then I would go to the minor 6th string. All you do is you kick out the middle finger, right? And then I would go to this pain in the ass. So a couple things just to talk about these, because it seems like those other shapes are making sense. This major 5 string is kind of annoying, because you either want to play it with all 4, I said it like you normally don't have 4 fingers. But you would do it like this, right? Where you have the like an A chord with all 3 and then the bar. That's fairly tricky to get to quickly. So a lot of times what people will do is they actually do another little bar with their ring finger, and so they flatten out this and this. And then it's hard to bend your finger in a way where you can hear that high note still. But even if you don't hear it, like if I were going, you can still hear that. It's a difference, but it's not that big of a deal. So if you have like a something that's quick, whatever it is, yeah, you might want to move it around a little bit. So, like I said, where you play these, that's how they get their name. You know, like whatever the what's referred to as the root note, but basically what the chord is named. So if it says G, you want to find a G somewhere on the 5th or 6th string. If it says A minor, you want to find the A and then match the shape to it. Okay? So as a little, there are people, and I think this is silly, but there are people that try and, memorize the keys, memorize where the notes are, like find every C note, find every F sharp, find every... It sounds crazy, right? Like, I can do it now, but it's not like I sat down and memorized that crap, okay? Yeah, screw that. There's no way I would have sat down and done that. It's super boring, and I've only really probably had 2-3 students where they benefited from that. It's just the way their brains are wired. They're just idiots, and it worked for them. You know? It just doesn't make sense. I'm just kidding. They know who they are, and I told that to them. I'm like, it makes no sense to me, but it works for them. So, like I said, who cares, right? What I would do is use this. So, if we are looking at this little chart, it gives you the answers. Woo. Right? So, if we're looking at that, it has all the natural notes everywhere, right? So it says where the natural notes are just notes without a sharp or a flat, which are called accidentals. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on this. So this just shows, like I said, this shows you where the natural notes are, because I feel like, people watching won't be able to see this, but that poster behind you, or me, has every single note on there, and it'll call something an F sharp or a G flat. Or I'm sorry, a G sharp, or it'll mess. I think I said it right the first time, but what's called enharmonic notes. So, if you're at A and you go 1 higher, you like A sharp, flat is 1 lower, so 1 lower than B is B flat. You can see those are the exact same fret. They're gonna sound the same and everything. It just depends on what key you're in. It'll make more sense later, but it's a way of organizing it so you know what key you're in. So you're just like, I have these 7 notes. That's it. Otherwise, you have 12 notes total in our music system, and it makes it way difficult. Okay? So if you were to see, like you said, F sharp popped up, maybe F sharp minor, but it was on that would be the 2nd fret right here. Okay? So all you need to do is whatever the song calls for, or whatever your progression is going to be, you just find the note and you match the appropriate shape. Okay, so we'll do a couple of these just so you can kind of see where it's good to practice these kind of in isolation. Like there's a few ways that I should say that I would practice this. One would be just to find where a chord is. So you could start with an open chord. So you'd play like a G, and you could play the G bar chord, and then the other G bar chord. Then you could do a C chord, do the C bar chord, the other one. Those are all C chords. So you find the 2 bar chords based on whatever. You just we're gonna go through it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. I'm just giving you a little sample of where we're going.
Okay.
Team double bar chord for sure. Screw that high string, right? Yeah.
I read that and I was like, I don't understand.
Well, yeah, that thing where I was skipping that note, right?
Yeah,
It's way better to do it that way most of the time. especially when you're like us and we have bigger hands. It's such I might have mentioned this the first one. That A chord, I never can do those fingers. I always do it like this with 3 fingers or just the one as a bar. There's no way to do the other one for me. It just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen.
Does not happen. Okay, so pick a chord, like an open chord that you know.
Why do you? I hate picking.
Just name a note that pops in your head.
G.
G, there you go.
Every.
Honestly, at this point, even if it like you want to avoid falling into the trap of doing what's comfortable all the time. So a lot of times what happens is people start to get it, and then they spend their entire time playing those chords, or they learn their first song. So they sit down to practice, and then they play what's comfortable, right? So at this point, though, you haven't really done the bar chords, so who gives a shit? Just do your thing, you know. So start with do A. Let's do it. So this A is actually a good example because it gets this throws people off a little bit because, like we said, there's always a 6-string and 5-string version of this, but the 5-string version of this might be a little weird for you. Well, you need to prep with some coffee before we get into this. You need to stretch.
This is a strong one too.
Oh, the one you made? All right, so here's what we're going to do. You said A.
Yes.
So play your A chord. Ta-da! Okay. Now find where the A note is. So we're down by 0, and if we think about the A chord, you started on the 5th string, right? Like when strumming wise, like a lot of times you want to skip string number 6 with that strum.
Right.
Oh yeah. I'm not doubting what you did.
No,
Oops. I got tangled up down here and I smashed it up here. So if we're looking over at this, you were playing the A chord with the A right here, and then this note, the C sharp right there, and the E. The individual notes don't matter, but you were starting on like the 5th string, right? So if we wanted to play that 5-string bar chord version of that, because you were playing on open, you just have to find the next A on that string, which is all the way up at 12. So I'm bringing that up, but that's going to be really hard to play on that guitar. Bar chord's way up high as anything, especially on this guitar without the cutaway, right? But just to show you what you would do, I mean, you could try it too. You would bar right where you are, right? And then you would put probably this finger. You don't want to make like some sorority girl awkward peace sign. Do that. Yep. It's awkward as hell, right? Yeah, you're right. So you bar all those 3 with that finger. It sucks, especially where you are. Actually, that didn't sound that bad. Yeah, you're hearing most of the notes. There's a little bit of a mute there. And what's happening is you're just starting with the bar too low. Move it a little bit higher so you're starting, your fingertip should be on that string. There you go. Yeah, better. But like I said, that's the worst shape and a horrible way or position to play it in. But does that make sense? So we found the A note and we matched the shape to it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that one, especially on an acoustic. What I would do though is maybe find like the 6-string A and then match that shape.
So you find the next A starting on the 6th.
Yeah, just find and most of the time you don't have to go all the way up to 12. Yeah, so the 5th fret. Oh, I kind of have the frets cut off a bit on the top there. Yeah, so 5th fret.
Wait.
So 2nd dot.
The first dot, you mean? This guitar?
No,
That
there's
one's
Is there one rubbed off on the top?
Yeah.
Oh, on the top. That's weird. I've had that guitar for like 20 years. I've never noticed that.
You never noticed they're here?
No, I knew they were up there, but I never noticed
There
that.
isn't a 3rd one and there isn't a 9th one. It only shows 5, 7, and 12.
Yeah, I never noticed that. That's hilarious.
I was looking at it today. I'm like, where are the dots? I have dots here. Okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've never. I've had that literally for 21 years.
Your first guitar?
It was one of the first, yeah. Or it was the first, yeah.
That's funny.
That's crazy. Anyway,
So
now that my mind has been blown.
You just do the other.
So don't worry about what you said. The A is on the 5th fret.
Yeah.
So then you're gonna play this shape, starting there. If it was an A major chord, which that's what you chose, right?
Yeah.
So with that one, use 2 fingers. Yeah. it's going to put your hand in a more relaxing position, and it's going to make it just easier. And that, it's just gonna be better all around. So with the bar, let's try this again. But just to explain this, especially for people that are brand new to this, you don't want to do the bar, especially leaning your hand this way. Okay. So your hand should never be in like your elbow shouldn't pop out, using like the inside part of your finger here, like in between your first and middle, right? Never do that. You also don't really want to just go completely straight, where you're using think where your fingerprint is, because you screw yourself over, because you'll be fine for like 3 strings, and then your knuckle happens, and you've got this dip where it's all fleshy in between the knuckles, kind of like you're not going to hear any of those notes. You'll hear where your knuckle hits, and then it dies out again. So you're probably going to have like 3-4 strings muted if you just try and do it perfectly flat. You're kind of naturally doing it where you're using more of the outside of your finger. So like the part of your finger that's in between this part with your thumb, right? And if you tilt it more a little bit like that, it makes that bar easier, I should say, to go across. Your thumb looks good too, but for anyone that's having issues getting the pressure, you shouldn't. At first, you kind of feel like you need to strangle the hell out of it, but it doesn't really. It doesn't have to be that way, right? So as you get comfortable with it, you will relax more and be able to play for longer and whatever. But you can just try and bar, just the 5th fret, and get that to sound good to kind of find that sweet spot where, yeah. So see, like right there, you're using more of the outside part. That's gonna work better.
Yeah, I can feel each string instead of
on your fingers. Yeah. Hey. There's benefits.
I do better if I can see people do it.
I learn the same way. I don't understand people that learn really well in like a classroom setting. Like especially we've talked about me in high school. I used to just do all the work and then not pay any attention or go.
Yeah. Well, I learned how to draw a stick pretty quickly because I watched my dad and then my sister. Like everybody through my family. So when it was my turn, it was just like, oh, I got it.
I mean, that brings something good up because everyone's learns differently, right? So if you're more visual and you need to see that, maybe like what would work well for you is, especially with YouTube now, look at a bunch of different people that are good players and kind of see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, don't imitate necessarily, because there's some guys out there with like the dumbest techniques that are amazing guitar players. Sometimes it's just they pick a little weird. Like I do down, they would do an up, and that's not that strange, right? Just a different way they practiced or whatever. But like I always make fun of Marty Friedman's hand. He always plays like underneath. I'll show you him later. But he's an amazing guitar player. I love his playing, and he plays underneath like this.
Okay.
I don't know how he keeps these strings. He's not, quiet or whatever. But so I wouldn't imitate that. And, it seems super unnatural. But you can get some ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, some people learn. Like I said, everyone except for maybe those 2 or 3 learn better through application than through trying to just be book smart and memorize it. I've used the example of my college classes because it started with like 40 people, and then they were like, I was 1 of 4 at the end because people that didn't, it wasn't like it got that hard that people couldn't do it. It's just they were trying to be book smart, and even if they were like the most badass piano player or whatever, they just didn't apply it, so they couldn't keep up. Okay, so there's a couple ways that you can do this. So we just did the A. If it's helpful for you, you could also do then the A minor. So you could go like A, A, A. You could do A minor. That sort of thing. Now the other thing about this is it might be better for you in terms of memorizing to play the major and minor together, so you see the difference in the bar chord. Because sometimes people get jacked up where they find the note and then they play the wrong shape. So they're on the 6th string, they're still playing a 6-string bar chord, but they play minor when they should play major, and then it sounds like the beginning of a Meshuggah song. And that's actually too good. We're listening to that after. Anyway,
You bring that up every single
that one? Yeah.
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, maybe. So like if you're playing that A minor, or A, I should say, A minor is just taking the middle finger off.
That makes sense.
If you're playing up here, that's the A, and then if that high note that we're barring right there, right, goes down one. But the difference between major and minor is only one note. Depending on what shape you're using, that note might happen more than one time, but there's only one note different between them. So what we just did, where you picked one chord and you find it in other spots, that's one way of playing it or practicing at first. That can be good. But then what I would do is I would just place like a song or play a progression and try and find how to play it and then practice what you found. Okay? So let's make up a little progression real quick just to try this out. Okay? So we're going to go D minor. I mean, I'm trying to choose chords that you might not memorize, like the open right away, just to show you that you can pretty much find anything this way. If there's, like, most chords have an open position, but if there's like a sharp or flat in it, it's not going to probably have open strings.
Okay.
In a lot of situations, you might do like, this is one thing that actually is kind of common, is having a bar chord shape and then maybe releasing one of the notes, so you get like a little bit more whatever. But getting ahead of myself. So let's do D minor and A minor. Okay. So what we're gonna do first of all is the first step is just to find a D that you want to play. So let's do the 5th string D. I'll give you the starting point. So on that 5th string, so the second to the bottom, right? You want to go until you find a D note. 5th, yep. So we found that 5th fret. Now, if it works well for you, but we could go ahead and just find where our starting points are going to be for all the chords. So we had D minor and A minor. So let's try it that way. Where's a close A to that D you just found? Oh, the 6th string. Yeah. Same fret, 6th string. Yeah, I just was clarifying.
The 6th one.
Yeah.
That could
It could
be
be
a lot of things.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So both of those bar chords are minor. Both of the, I thought that was your guitar making that noise.
I thought so too.
I don't know if they can hear it, but there's someone outside backing up or something. And it sounded like she just created the weirdest noise ever. Yeah, so both are on the 5th fret. Both are minor. Okay? So I just mentioned. How many times do you think I hit my head where my head is at least twice a stream? That's hilarious. All right. Okay, so 5th string, minor shape. So now you have the shapes up there.
Okay.
So-
Yeah.
so-
5th string. So then you go.
Go to the
this
5th,
way.
yeah, the 5th fret that you found for that D.
And then you do this one, right? So this one and those two.
Almost. You're kind of
Okay.
combined. You had the right shape, but you started putting it on the wrong string. This pinky always is going to be right underneath the ring finger.
Okay.
If you relax your hand, it follows this kind of curve, right? So I probably said this before to you, but if your hand is curved, I don't know how well they can see it like this, but my pinky is lower and my first finger hangs up higher. Similar, like if you're tapping your fingers, you tend to go pinky to first. It's just more natural. But if you're putting all your fingers on one fret or something like that, you don't want to flip them because you make the muscle.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
So there's your D minor. So you can see I'll play the open one. Now they're very similar, right? Yeah. So then if we were to go to A minor, you chose the 5th fret on the 6th string, and now you're gonna play, starting there, you play the minor shape. So you were there.
Still do that, right? Like,
Yeah, so you would start there,
or
and then you would move that down because like look at the difference between that shape and the one we're going to the one right next to it.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what you just did was, and I'm pointing on the rather than letting people see. Yeah, you were trying to go over to this major shape.
Okay.
So we're playing the far right and then the second to last or whatever you want. The other minor shape.
So then, yeah, I just need to.
Which fingers would be better? There you go. It makes your hand much more relaxed, and it puts this finger in a better spot. One thing you can do is when you're barring, you can use this finger for a little more pressure if you want for that shape. I do that a lot, actually. Yeah, you'll see when I do this bar, a lot of times I kind of put my middle finger a little bit there. You don't want to put it like on top and like force your finger down kind of thing, because then you're putting extra pressure, and it's going to make it much harder when you're going to probably need to use it soon. Right? But if you're like here for the major, you want your finger to kind of touch or whatever feels natural. You're not using it, so that looks pretty natural for you. Yeah. So right there, your D minor, like what normally would be, that might be the acoustic part, the electric. Right? Now you're doing something a little bit differently than I do. That's not a big deal, but just to bring this up because it might be an issue that people need to pay attention to. So just tune out. When you're barring, regardless of whether you're doing the 5 or the 6, your finger's kind of in the same spot. So you are hitting the 6th string even when you're doing the 5-string bar chord. It doesn't matter. Like some people like to leave it there. So like when you just switched, you left the bar where it was and went. Right? What I do is I kind of reposition my whole hand. You know, like move it. In a lot of situations, I'll do that. But here's the thing: if it's more comfortable to bar like you are, just do that. Well, it's a consistency thing. Sometimes a lot of times you were just kind of leaving it, and it's like I said, it's not a big deal because it actually sounds good and it's part of the chord. It just makes it sound bigger. So you have more thicker, right? And so especially if you were playing more electric stuff or like distortion, you know, sounds thicker than.
Oh, no, I'm glad you brought that up.
It wasn't every time. Like I said, it was a consistency thing. It's because it's new. You haven't gotten the muscle memory to know where the sweet spot is or know just in general what you like, right? That'll come by doing progressions. I just chose just 2 random chords. So I'm putting you on the spot again. You choose 2 random chords. Any 2.
E and C.
Okay.
E.
E.
That's weird.
Oh, I mean, you
Minor
might.
and C maybe.
Okay. I mean, if you were doing E and C, it would probably, depending on what key you're in, most of the time it would break the key, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we had, see, that sounds a little bit like it's dramatic. So you might play that. I think that sounds cool, but you might play that and be like, because it is really dramatic, it might not just sound that great to you. So if that's, I mean, you test it with an open chord real quick and say, which one do I like better? Do I like or E minor? Whichever. I think they both sound cool. But you can always test it out. But sometimes when you just choose randomly, like if you were doing an E, it would be more common to have a C sharp major afterwards.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, C sharp minor afterwards, not major. So instead of C major, it would be the C sharp minor. So that would be like, that's just a little bit more predictable. So.
So if you have like an open chord like E,
You can certainly use it.
is it more common to have a minor chord along with it to like balance everything out?
You're going to have a combination of major and minor chords in most situations. If you're playing like blues, it can be one or the other. Like if you're playing a minor blues, it's only going to be minor chords kind of thing. Most of the time you have some sort of combination. You don't have to necessarily balance it out right away, but you can always think like if I play a major chord, it's going to start happy because it's major, and then if I put a minor after it, it might mellow out the mood more than just being like if you went E to A. That's something you would never hear me play, right? I might do E minor, a little happy for a second, but you gotta be careful. Yeah. It's bad for your health.
I think it's funny that when you play the major, you're like.
Because I'm mocking it.
Okay.
Major keys to me are pretty boring. They, if you're playing, there's a reason for it. Not even just because I like the sadder sounding stuff anyway. But if you're playing in a major key, you have less things that you can commonly switch to, like to break the rules and stuff. If you're playing in minor, you have harmonic minor, which is a variation of it. You have melodic minor potentially. You have a lot more options of chord progressions that are dramatic and spooky, especially. But they don't have to be spooky, but I like those. Me gusta. Okay, so you chose. What did you want to do? E? You want to do like the open E to a bar chord, or do you want to stick with just bar chords? It's up to you. Bar chord, just sticking with bar chords will be a little bit easier.
Well, let's go easy.
All right. So you have E minor then?
Yeah.
Okay, and C. Okay, so E. Let's go. Let's find our note. Let's just find. Do you want to? Did it work or feel like it worked well to find both your starting points and then find the shapes, or do you want to just try and find the first shape and then the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. So you obviously, like you said, you have the open E minor, right? Which you could use, and a lot of times you probably would because it sounds bigger, right? A lot of times you don't really want to go from like a something big to going to like something more small necessarily, but so you could use the open. What if you wanted to do the bar chord, let's say?
7.
Yep, 7th fret.
5th string.
Yep, so 5th string, that minor shape.
So then you just do G. Oh, down here.
What? Remember what shape you're on. You're starting on the 5th string.
Right. Okay. So then that's the 3. Okay. So then it would be this one and this one.
Yep. So one thing to bring up, I think it's probably going to be a good habit for you to do the bar part first.
Yeah, that's true.
So bar on that 7 and then add those other. Yep, you're right. Add those fingers. Yeah. It's going to be easier to transition to the bar than to the other notes and make the bar sound. Because like here, I'll show you the difference. If you were to go bar first, you get that, which sounds pretty music. If you go,
Yeah, then you're good.
right? It sounds like it doesn't sound necessarily bad in this situation, but right, some of it might sound a little gross. But yeah, bar first, and then adding the others, it tends to be much easier. And but anyway,
Yeah.
there's our first chord, right?
Mhm.
So we're going from that E minor to C. Where is a close C then on our cheat sheet to the one you were just playing?
I mean, we could go to the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah.
You're on 7.
Yeah.
8's real close.
Alright.
Yep. So then, I guess I forgot to switch over. It's going to be easier when you don't have to switch back and forth between screens.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what do I do now?
Yeah, so if we're looking at, and you're playing major, starting on the 6th string. So you play the first shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh boy.
They're tricky. But yeah, so if you have, so you're going, I'm sorry, you were doing E minor. Right? Now here, if you wanted, like most of the time, if you started here, that would be the C that you're going to play.
Uh-huh.
It's close, it sounds good, they're fairly balanced, right? Let's just, as the other way you could play it, we could obviously use the 5-string shape of the major, right? And if we were to do that, just to show you real quick, you don't have to do it, but you would go from the 7th fret down to the C on the 3rd fret. So you'd have, your version was the other one. They sound pretty much the same, right? Now, the only reason you might want to do that one, which is harder, both, just to play the shape and transition-wise, you might want to do that if you want like a slide sort of effect. Like if you want, something a little bit more, or but otherwise, just do it close. Is that making more sense then? Like how they? So yeah, you could look up songs. You can just pick random chords, whatever. A lot of times people like if you're visual, maybe you want to make cut out those chords and make them like flashcards and flip over 2 or 4 or whatever feels manageable. 4 would be a good goal, but 2 might be the way to go to start. But get your chord progression and find different ways of playing it. So you could play like that E minor. You could do, like I said, the open. Open with the bar for the C. I could do open. I don't think I ever do that one. Yeah. So you did ask about the F chord, which normally is a bar chord. So just real quick before we wrap up, I wanted to bring that up. If you're looking at both the, excuse me, if you look at the major and the minor 6-string shapes, so the first shape on that page and the third, right? If you were only to play the highest, for one, you could always play a 4-string bar chord and play the highest 4 notes. Okay, so if we look at this, that would be like this. You would still bar those 2 notes up at the top of that first shape, right? But you would have, like, say, the 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, and you would ignore these low 2 and ignore the bar. So you would only end up with, yep. And so you need to still bar that finger. So this is where you would probably want to reposition your thumb and have, see how I have more of that space here? That's, that you probably want more of that. You're only going to hit like those 4. It's a weird shape, right? But that's the F shape that a lot of people start with, is doing, one, and like, so see how, like, this is a G, because we're starting on the G note. If I were to move this, there's an F sharp, there's an F. So because we're only playing those strings and it's barred and, you can move it. So the F chord, like I said, most of the time what people will do is they'll play those 4 strings. So 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 1st and 1st barred. Or the minor version, which would be 3, 3, 1, 1, that sort of thing. So you have, right? The F that's really common that people do is actually technically an F major 7, but it's removing that bar and basically having 0, 1, 2, 3. It works really. A lot of times I use this just because it sounds really good with, like, say, the C chord. So doing like sounds unified, right? So there I'm doing A minor, the F like that. Because if I did, still sounds good, but I actually like the sound of that thing. So that, 0, 1, 2, 3. No, it's just that. Real quick, just to make sure that the weird notes would make sense, because you will see them. Let's say you had an E chord in C sharp minor. Let's go back to that example I kind of mentioned. So let's say E is open, because that'll sound better, and then C sharp will be barred. So play your E chord. Yep. I'm kind of just putting you on the spot for memory, right?
Wait a second. No, I got it.
Yeah. So you've got the E chord right there, right? And now what you're going to want to do is we're going to go to C sharp minor. So sharp is higher, right? So find a C. So you could go way high up to, like, find a C on the 8th fret, right? What about if that's a big jump? Chances are the other third would be the C. So how do you make that C sharp?
I don't know.
Make it higher sounding. Yep. Shorten the string. Or move towards the guitar body. If it said, like, E flat, like, say we found this E on the 7th fret, the flat is going to be 1 below it.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. So the C sharp would be the 4th fret, right?
Okay.
So right before, I guess, the first dot there, and then in between the ones I didn't know existed. But yeah, you're going to go up to that, do the minor shape. So
really close, you want to be on the fourth. You were doing it on C.
Oh.
We want to do C sharp. And see, that's what I was talking about. It seems more natural for you, like most of the time, just have it going across. So don't fight it if it, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're going to go from that E. Big jump. So one thing that can help, sometimes you can maintain the shape. Okay, so I'm going to make something up. Let's say I was going A minor to C minor. It's gonna, just because it sounds cool. But if I might play the A with a weird shape, like, or fingering like this. That's a good point. That's probably one of the exceptions for it, right? Yeah, because I already have that shape, right? Sometimes it's not as obvious, but there's still something you can do. So like that E to C sharp, they don't look similar, right? My ring finger's on the same string though. So when I'm playing, so I leave that and then I build the rest of the chord around it. So if there is something, like you can always look, is the finger going to stay on the same string? Or is the shape going to be the same? Or, you know, try and notice whatever kind of little pattern, you know? But yeah, you can do this with existing progressions. So you could look up a song and try and play it with all bar chords. You could do it with, you can do it with open chords and then the ones that are standing out that you were running into. Now, they won't give you as big of a problem because you'll, it also sometimes, especially if you're looking up stuff online, the information can be crazy. Yeah, Seth just said. The Third Eye, I haven't heard that band, Third Eye Blind. That's probably right up your alley. You love the 90s.
I do.
But yeah, I don't even remember the song Jumper. Do you know that song?
I don't know names of songs.
Oh, that's right. But yeah. Oh wait, you put it in there, so. There you go. There's your progression to practice. F sharp, C. No, there's no sharp in this. It would say F sharp 7 or whatever. This is.
Wait,
It's
why
an
is it F7?
F major 7.
Oh.
That was the chord shape we were just talking about.
Okay.
It wasn't the bar chord. It was the mini bar chord without that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the one that you can use as a substitute. Right? Yeah. So those are going to be good workouts. So like I was saying with this, start with, the shapes in those order.
Okay.
Or in that order, just to kind of find all the A's, all the F sharp minors, whatever you need to find. But yeah, if you're finding things online, you might want to find an easier way of playing it, right? So that could be another option where they wrote it in a dumb way that makes it harder or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Changing.
yeah.
This is stupid.
Right?
They're wrong.
She had a song printed out, and I corrected everything on it.
Not everything, just
Well,
a couple of things.
3 out of 6 chords. So, okay, not everything. But, cool. I will,
What did you say?
oh, he typed the, I was like, what are you saying? He typed the lyrics.
Oh.
That song.
I do like that.
God damn it, now it's going to be in my head all day.
Maybe I'll try to play that song.
Oh, I'm going to hear Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
It could be worse. There's other songs that you could start playing. You could do the,
How many times have I had to listen to your students' songs in the next room?
some of the student songs for sure. But it could be, I mean. That could be stuck in my head. Yeah, you should learn the Gunther song.
We just listened to this and we were gonna make it.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Just for you, but
Well, maybe I'll do something that'll avoid the copyright strike, but still use it.
hopefully.
My ta-la-la. Did I tell you that I got my nephews to start going around to family events saying "ooh ta la la"? They would just go up to the. It was hilarious.
Good thing that they don't know what that means. So.
I didn't put the touch in there.
True. Or the second part to it. So. Let's
Oh,
just
yeah.
There and now you can bring it up again.
Oh, but it's so funny.
Little ears might be watching. Little ears might be watching.
Whatever. It's good for them. Alrighty, everybody.
Okay, guys.
Thanks. Good to see you, Seth.
Bye.
Good to see you guys. We'll hit me up if you guys, anyone has questions on any of this stuff too, because we've been addressing her questions. But if anyone else has stuff that's popping up, no matter how beginner or advanced, we should address it.
Yeah, I mean, you can post it on Facebook. We'll get to it, and maybe we can address it here, or
Yeah, we
you
can do
know,
both.
comment
Yeah.
on YouTube or whatever. So we'll look and see what we can do.
Sounds good.
All right, bye guys.